Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, my beautiful hot messes. My name is Mistress Lavender, and today I'm reading Rich AF by Vivian 2. I am still on, I want to say chapter 1, part 3. I am in charge of my money on page 83, and this is the budgeting section. Now, if you don't know who I am or where I'm even starting, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and then click the first episode, silly. But if you do, let's begin. I'm starting at I Remember. I remember my first big purchase after I'd started working full time on Wall Street, a beautiful black leather Prada bag. It was the most money I'd ever spent on something. I had my eyes on it for weeks, months. I was literally swearing on the bonus. Oh, I was literally sweating at the boutique when it was time to actually buy it. I had worked my A off for it, not just for that Wall Street job, but to get that job in the first place. And now I was reaping the luxurious fruits of my labor in the form of this gorgeous designer piece. By the time I swiped my card at the register, I knew I had earned every stitch on that bag. I was trading blood, sweat, and tears for Safriano leather, and I swear, in that moment, I really felt like I had made it. I was legit thinking, yes, I am the American dream when I carried it around in public. When I got a compliment on it, I felt a sense of pride, precisely because I knew how hard I had worked to afford that bag. But I wasn't able I wasn't able to get that bag just because I worked so hard. I was able to buy it because I had a budget. Yes, I was making good money, but I wasn't like FU rich. I wasn't so ungodly wealthy that money was no object for me. And I wasn't surrendering to the void of customer debt because YOLO and we're all going to die anyway. I still had to plan ahead for that purchase. And really, that's how I always seen budgeting and still do. Planning ahead so that I can indulge my dream of owning buttery Italian leather without screwing myself out of rent. Now, if you hate the idea of budget, I totally get it. When people think about a budget, it instantly makes them imagine this incredibly restrictive thing, like a diet or a punishment. Financially talking heeds like Dave Ramsey are out there giving us straight up shame and judgment about our budget or lack thereof and calling it tough love. And it ends up feeling like a monster list of stuff you're not allowed to have, you poor. So yeah, given all that, no wonder you hate budgets. But what if I told you about this amazing system that that make it possible for you to march into that Prada store and pick your fave bag off the shelf and pay for it outright. No problem. You'd probably be so into that. Well, that's a budget. The real talk is that budgets don't suck. And if you think they do, it's because you haven't been taught about them correctly. Budgets aren't about slapping your hand out of the cookie jar. They're more like a recipe that allows you to have the biggest, fullest, most delicious jar of cookies that you can enjoy for the rest of your life. Sadly, too many folks feel that ill budget feeling and never get past it. They end up deciding it's better to just wing it. But when has winging it ever been a good idea? You're right. We've just established that money is important. So why leave something so important up to whatever and just hope for the best? Fact is, when it comes to money, if you fail to plan, you're failing to plan. If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. Yeah, maybe I sound like your middle school gym teacher, but it's true. Because you know who doesn't like failing? You know who hates to fail? Rich people. Rich people hate failing, but they do love planning, especially when it comes to money. In other words, rich people budget. They budget like heck. I do, all my rich besties do, my rich mentors sure do. Rich people who were born rich people who were born rich budget because that's how they're going to keep the family home in Martha's Vineyard and send their kids to Harvard and retire at 45. Rich people who used to be broke budget because that's how they got there are where they are and that's what's going to keep them there. The only rich people who don't budget are the ones who aren't going to be rich much longer. You know what I mean? The thing is, unless you are making a truly astronomical amount of money, and I'm talking to Bezo bucks, like you literally have your own private fleet of spacecraft rich, you're gonna have to budget to ensure financial well-being for future you. But Vivian, you're probably yelling at this book. I thought the whole point of being rich is not to have to worry about money anymore. To which I say, when did I ever say anything about worrying? That's the thing about rich people and their money management. The way they budget is what makes all the difference. For them, budgeting is not a stressor, it's an opportunity. It's what fuels more money making machines that create rich lifestyles. It's it's maybe even a little fun. That's what it means to budget the rich AF way. And I'm going to teach you how. Next page. What is a budget? Let's get back to the basics here. A budget is just a plan for what you're going to do with your money. It's strategizing about how to make the most of your resources you have to get the results you want on the timeline you're working with, which I guarantee you already know how to do. Even if you've never had a budget in your life, budgeting uses the same brain skills that you can use, for example. Scheduling your workouts around when you want to wash your hair. The same way you go, okay, Thursday is date night, so I'll push my Tuesday night workout to Wednesday morning and have 45 and 48-hour hair of happy hour perfect. You can come up with a strategy to deploy your dollars effectively. So trust me here, you've got this, baby. With that definition in mind, allow me to bust down some myths or preconceptions you might be holding around budgeting. Budgeting doesn't mean deprivation. I mean, I budget and I'm not deprived at all. But seriously, regardless of how much money you make, I 100% believe that every budget should have room for the things that make you happy, whether they're essentials or not, and we'll get into the non negotiables later on. More than that, if your budget makes you miserable, you're not going to follow it. And then it's a good and then it's as good as no budget. So, there's zero point in depriving yourself in the name of budgeting, especially when budgeting is the very thing that will let you be a fancy bee with all the money you stashed away. Budgeting doesn't mean not being spontaneous. By the same token, budgeting lets you plan to be spontaneous. I know, it sounds like an oxymoron, but think about it. Rather than making a last minute decision to meet up with your friends only to panic whether your account is overdrawn when you slap down your card, you can ring up another round of cocktails no problem because you know you have money for it. Thanks, budgeting. A budget doesn't keep you from being spontaneous because a budget doesn't dictate exactly when you'll spend that fun money. It just means you plan ahead to have some fun and spend money doing it. At some point in the future, in our outline, not a word for word script, your budget plan can and should adapt as life changes, for worse and for better. If anything, knowing you've prepped for whatever might happen frees up a lot of mental energy to be more spontaneous in the day to day because you know you've already got your basics covered. Budgeting is about self acceptance, not punishment. I think most, if not all, people who suck at budgeting are really just dealing with shame and embarrassment. Those feelings are real. As we'll see in a bit, the first step in budgeting is basically just taking a deep, hard look at yourself and your spending habits. And unsurprisingly, seeing your credit card statement and saying, dang, I spent $700 on delivery last month is just not a good feeling. So, when you take a deep breath, deep, hard look, and feel that not niceness, that sense of dread, that overwhelming embarrassment about how you've been spending your money, most people just stick their head in the sand. Instead of changing that habit, most people choose to not acknowledge the habit is going on at all. Well, kind of, well, if I don't know, I don't know kind of attitude. If they budget at all, it's a weird pungent, I got to get back on track and atone for my past sins kind of overboard approach that's impossible to stick with. That just triggers more shame at being a failure and lands them right back into ignorance is bliss land. Well, ignorance is not bliss, trust. But I'd be lying if I said budgeting was always super fun.